Hello, friends. Exactly 1 year ago, during Halloween, a terrifying incident occurred with a family so horrifying that even today, when you hear about it, it will send chills down your spine. The event was that disturbing. Let's begin. In a small town in rural Virginia, there lived a young man named Daniel. It had been a long time since Daniel had visited his uncle's family. His uncle had a son named Chris, who worked in the city. The whole family lived in Richmond, Virginia. That year, during Halloween of 2023, Daniel decided, let me go to Richmond and celebrate Halloween at my uncle's place. I'll meet Chris too. The last time we were together, we were kids. Now we're both grown up, with our own lives and responsibilities. It'll be fun to enjoy Halloween together, and we can explore Richmond, a big city. Daniel reached his uncle's house a few days before Halloween. He spent time with his cousin Chris, who was not just his cousin, but also a close friend. They roamed around Richmond, enjoying the sights and the city's lively atmosphere. During one of these outings, Daniel said to Chris, "This is great fun. Why don't we celebrate Halloween this year in Salem?" Chris agreed, saying, "Yes, that would be interesting. I've been wanting to visit Salem, especially during Halloween when the town's history comes alive." They decided to talk to Chris's mother, Daniel's aunt, and his younger sister, whom they fondly called Bella, though she was around 17 to 18 years old. They returned home, discussed it with them, and both were on board with the plan. Chris had his own car, a nice 5-seater, and they were a total of 4 people, so there was no problem with space. Everything was set. They planned to reach Salem just in time for the Halloween festivities and return after the midnight celebrations. However, Chris's father, Daniel's uncle, was not in favor. He warned them, no, don't go to Salem during Halloween. There will be too much crowd. The entire country flocks to Salem during this time. Go some other time. But the group insisted, persuading him until he finally said, "All right, but be careful and don't stay there too long. Leave as soon as you can." Excited, they set out on their journey, reaching Salem as planned. They visited the old witch trial sites, participated in the costume parade, and enjoyed the haunted attractions. As the night approached and the clock neared midnight for the Halloween celebrations, the crowd swelled. They had initially planned to stay the night in a hotel, but seeing the increasing crowd, Chris and Daniel decided it was better to leave immediately. Around 1 a.m., they got into the car and began their journey back to Richmond. After about half an hour of driving, they found themselves on a deserted road. It was a narrow, lonely route winding through the dense forests of Virginia, with nothing but darkness around. The only source of light was the car's headlights, but strangely, the headlights began to dim. The taillights also flickered and eventually went out. Chris's mother, sitting in the back, asked, "Chris, is everything all right?" Chris tried to stay calm, assuring her that it was just a minor issue. But deep down, he was worried. The car wouldn't start and something felt off. He didn't want to scare anyone, so he kept trying to start the car. It had been a while and the car still wouldn't start. Chris was getting more anxious, but he didn't want to step out of the car to check, nor did he ask Daniel to do so. It was as if he sensed something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, they heard a loud thud from the back of the car, as if someone had struck the rear windshield. Everyone was startled and looked back, but there was nothing there. Given the darkness and the dim lights, they couldn't see much. They reassured themselves that it was probably just their imagination. Maybe something fell outside due to the wind. Chris was sweating despite the cool autumn air, and his mother noticed. She pressed him to tell the truth. "Chris, tell me honestly, is everything okay?" Just as Chris was about to answer, stuttering and scared, they heard another loud bang, this time even more intense. The car shook, and Chris let out a scream. Daniel suggested that they should step out and check what's going on. Chris, though scared, agreed. They both got out of the car and walked to the back, but there was no one there. Daniel, gathering his courage, shouted, "Who's there? Stop messing with us and come out!" But there was no response. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck, and Chris's mother, scared inside the car, urged them to get back in, saying, "The weather and atmosphere outside don't feel right. We should leave as soon as possible. I have a bad feeling about this." Daniel's aunt had a strong sixth sense, and whatever she sensed usually turned out to be true. Reluctantly, Chris and Daniel got back into the car. As soon as they did, there was another loud bang on Chris's side window. When they turned to look, they saw a woman staring blankly through the window. Her eyes were expressionless, and she had a poker face. Chris, gathering some courage, rolled down the window slightly and asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" The woman replied in a strange voice, "I need to go a little ahead. There's no other way to get out of these woods in this heavy rain. Can you give me a lift?" Daniel, sensing Chris's hesitation, said, "All right, you can sit in the back. We'll drop you off." The woman responded in that same eerie voice, "Don't worry, your car will start as soon as I get in." She walked to the back, and Chris unlocked the door from his side. As soon as she got in and closed the door, the car started without any issue. Everyone was shocked, looking at each other, but the woman was just staring outside, showing no interest in anything else. They drove on in silence for a while, and then Daniel, who was sitting in the front, turned back to ask the woman, "Where exactly do you need to go?" The woman replied softly, "I need to go to Roanoke." Chris, surprised, said, "But we're going to Richmond, not Roanoke." The woman replied, "That's fine. Take me to Richmond. It's been many years since I last visited. I have many memories associated with Richmond." Her strange behavior and emotionless voice were unsettling. Chris suddenly felt an urge to play a gospel hymn on the car's music system. Something inside him told him it was necessary. But as soon as he tried to play it, the system malfunctioned. The familiar starting tune of the hymn played and then got stuck, as if the music system had suddenly broken down. This was strange because the system was new, just installed a short time ago. There was no reason for it to fail like this. Meanwhile, Chris and Daniel were both trying to figure out what was wrong with the system when suddenly they heard a loud scream from the back. It was Bella. They turned around to see that the woman's appearance had changed dramatically. She no longer looked normal. Her entire body seemed burnt, with her clothes also scorched. Her hand was tightly gripping Bella's neck with one hand and Chris's mother's neck with the other. Chris's mother's face was turning red, and her eyes had rolled back as if she wasn't breathing. Bella was gasping for air, and the woman's nails were long and dirty, almost bear-like, with hair growing in patches. Her once expressionless eyes were now bulging, one of them missing, and her hair was disheveled and matted. Chris was horrified, losing control of the car, but when he tried to hit the brakes, they didn't work. Daniel, seeing this, shouted, "Chris, focus on driving! I'll try to do something!" Daniel tried to pull the woman's hands away, but they were like stone, unmovable. The woman was like a statue, her grip unyielding, while Chris's mother's breathing was almost gone, and Bella's life was slipping away. In that moment of desperation, Chris suddenly started reciting the Lord's Prayer. "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." As he started chanting, Daniel joined in, and after just the first few lines, the woman let out a terrifying scream. The scream was so loud that it pierced their ears, and the woman shattered the window with a force so powerful that it's hard to describe. She vanished into the darkness as the window shattered, and with that, the car came to a halt. Daniel tried starting it again, and little sis began trying to revive her mother by splashing water on her face. Chris, now in the back seat, was rubbing his aunt's hands to bring her back to consciousness. Suddenly, Daniel's mother took a deep breath and shouted, "Praise the Lord!" Everyone in the car echoed her cry, and just like that, the car started again. Daniel, relieved, drove as fast as he could, not stopping until they reached Columbus. When they got home, they didn't tell Daniel's father the whole story, just that they had seen a woman on the roadside. They were scolded lightly, with Daniel's father saying, "I told you not to go. I had a bad feeling about this." But they never revealed the full horror of that night. Chris and Daniel were deeply shaken by the experience, unable to sleep well for weeks. They still remember that night vividly, especially the feeling of dread that accompanied them on that desolate road. They learned a hard lesson about heeding warnings and the mysterious forces that can lurk in the shadows. Today, as they share this story, they remind themselves and others of the power of faith and vigilance. The experience became a profound reminder of the unseen dangers and the importance of keeping one's faith strong in the face of fear. As they look back on that Halloween, they know they were protected by a higher power, and they are grateful for the lesson learned. And so, the tale of that fateful night in Ashland is not just a story of fright, but also a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the protection that faith can offer in the darkest of times. This concludes the Halloween story with its chilling details and the ultimate reminder of faith and vigilance.